My name is Steve Capusta. I own a company in Virginia Beach called BrainCore Hampton Roads. I want to thank Zach and the folks at Hatch for having me here tonight. Tell you a little bit about my business. It involves something called neurofeedback. Most of you probably aren't familiar with what that is, so we're going to just jump right in and explain. Neurofeedback is a technique for dealing with brain-based disorders without the use of medication or invasive procedures, in which the brain activity is recorded using sensors and presented visually or audibly so that the patient can know the state of the function he or she is trying to control. I'll break that down a little bit more layman's terms here as we go along. Neurofeedback can help a lot of conditions. Pretty much anything neurologically based can be assisted by neurofeedback, and I'm going to explain why. There's one key variable. You can see anything from ADHD, anxiety, depression. I do workshops on a lot of these conditions where I dig in and talk about some of the statistics that are out there. The reason that neurofeedback can help so many different things is one word, and that's brainwaves. We all have a brainwave pattern, and when that brainwave pattern is normal, people don't have issues, and I'll dig into reasons why they do, because when the brainwave pattern becomes dysfunctional or abnormal, that drives a lot of the conditions that were on this previous screen. The traditional medical approach, I'm not here to bash doctors, medicine, or anything of that nature. Those people are there to help others as well, but we're a very medicated society. We're about 5% of the world's population. We use about 75% of the medications out there. So that's kind of just the philosophy in general. Medications could serve a purpose, but they're typically a band-aid on an underlying issue. Neurofeedback is a learning modality, which is really critical. It's why a layperson like myself can do it after being trained. It's painless, drugless, non-invasive. It's considered safe for both children and adults. So neurofeedback is based upon the principle that everybody has that normal brainwave pattern that I've mentioned. The brain regulates itself. But when that gets disrupted, and we use the word dysfunctional, that's when some of these neurological issues can come into play. A person that doesn't have any brainwave dysfunction, if they're out there, God bless them, because in our society, I don't know how that's possible. But if they are, they can go from these different processing speeds without any issue. Slow processing, when we're sleeping, delta brainwaves are dominating our brain. We wake up, we're a little groggy, or in the state of theta. Idle processing is what we call alpha. If you meditate or if you do something mundane, wash a car, maybe do some laundry, you're probably in the state of alpha. Beta is the fast processing, how we function probably 95% of most days. Cognitive thinking, things of that nature. Again, most of us aren't fortunate enough to not have dysregulation, myself included. I was just mapped recently. If somebody has delta theta dysregulation, the slow processing, essentially they get stuck in that slow processing mode. That's been associated with some of the conditions you can see here. ADHD is a big one. I just did a workshop on that. Autism, Asperger's, another condition that's very, very prevalent. If somebody has alpha dysregulation, the idle processing, if they get stuck in that mode, that's been associated with some of the conditions you see here. Depression being a very, very big one. Just starting to work with someone that has fibromyalgia. The fast processing, beta dysregulation, I think a lot of people can make sense of this probably more than maybe some of the others. If your brain is stuck in that fast processing mode, it can be associated with things like anxiety, OCD, panic attacks, insomnia. The brain just cannot move out of that mode when it needs to without medication. Why do we have brainwave dysregulation? Any number of reasons. The key to this is prolonged stress response. That's not good for any of us for any reason, but it's certainly not good for our brains. We live in a very, very toxic environment. That's probably a topic for another conversation. Nutrition, a lot of people don't realize that what we put in our bodies doesn't just affect our gut, it affects our brain just as much, if not more. Emotional, physical trauma, stress, that's PTSD. So there's a lot of reasons people have dysregulation. So what we do, this is Dr. Guy Menziano, the founder of BrainCore. He is doing what we call a QEEG, quantitative electroencephalogram, which is a fancy name for brain mapping. We read people's brain waves for a period of 6 minutes with their eyes closed, 6 minutes with their eyes open. Our system generates maps and shows us the brainwave situation and the dysregulation that is going on. Once we determine what the situation is, we come up with a game plan for the actual neurofeedback. Neurofeedback typically involves watching something, since most of us are visual. We also have an audio capability. But in this case, he's working with his son. And he's hooked up to the system, and our systems are synced. So when the brain waves are doing what we are training them to do and regulate those dysregulated patterns, in this case, the puzzle fills in. If someone's watching a movie, the screen will be normal when everything's fine. But when the brain waves are not doing what we want, which happens all the time in every session, the screen will darken and the volume will go down during that period. That's the feedback the brain's getting. The brain doesn't care why you want to watch Jersey Shore or whatever the heck that's on there. It just knows that you do. And so over a period of time, and this is not an instantaneous process, the brain is going to regulate itself because it wants to see whatever it's watching in the best way possible. This is a picture of our monitor, so we see what's going on with the brainwave situation. And again, it's synced up to the client monitor to determine if the brainwaves are doing what we want. From a credibility standpoint, a couple things here. Dr. Duffy here at Harvard says neurofeedback should play a major therapeutic role in many difficult areas. In my opinion, if any medication had demonstrated such a wide spectrum of efficacy, it would be universally accepted and widely used. The American Academy of Pediatrics, it's a group of about 60,000 physicians in the U.S. You probably can't see it, but for attention and hyperactivity behaviors, biofeedback, of which neurofeedback is part of, is considered a level 1 best support on the same par with medication, behavior therapy, and some other things. So we're getting the word out eventually. Neurofeedback's only been out clinically in a big way for about 10 or 12 years. It was originally discovered about 50 years ago, so there's a lot of research that backs it up. And there you go, over 40, 50 years of research. The main reason I started this business, and Zach can tell you, starting a business, if you're selling widgets, it's pretty difficult. When you start up something that most people have no clue what it is, and you're starting from an education process, it's even more difficult. But the reason I did it was solely to really get to the core of helping people at a level that they just could not be helped prior to that. And these are some of our testimonials. This is the first person that I worked with, and it was a 3-year-old. Long story. How can a 3-year-old do neurofeedback? Well, he was homeschooled, so he didn't really watch TV. He'd come to the office, he'd be able to watch the screen and the show 20 minutes at a clip because it was a treat. And he took to it very, very well. And this is what his mother had to say. I won't read it all to you. This is another person. This is a teenager that had ADHD, had all sorts of issues, and she says, what a huge turnaround my son has made since working with BrainCore Hampton Roads. Everything from being more outgoing in classes, gregarious with his friends and teammates, to just in general smiling and laughing more. I'm thrilled to see that he's also focusing on short-term and long-term goals, getting in the habit of writing specific goals down before golf matches. It fills my cup to see him coming into his comfort and confidence zone. This is why I do this. The prospects, the folks that I'm trying to help, obviously this can help anybody technically that has a condition or not. We have a program called Peak Performance. If business people want to sharpen their skills, or some professional athletes that are starting to use it, it can help them as well. I've decided to focus on 3 particular conditions: ADHD, depression, and anxiety. So individuals can be helped. Parents of children that have those conditions are folks that we're trying to reach out to. Individuals associated with support groups relating to those conditions. I've tried to strike some alliances with mental health professionals, not so much psychiatrists because they're into the med thing, but counselors, social workers, folks like that. Pediatric physicians that have an open mind because, again, this is not traditional, hasn't been around that long. Companies that are interested in helping their employees at this type of level, that's the peak performance that I just mentioned. School system, would love to get into school systems and help children at that level as well. I get out in different events, and again, private school systems is another area of interest for me. And we're in a big military community, and that doesn't just involve PTSD, but it also involves TBIs, traumatic brain injury, and it could also involve peak performance, sharpening their skills as well. So these are some of the areas that I'm focusing on in terms of my prospects, if you will. That's all I have for you. So I appreciate your time, and I will open it up for questions. Yes, sir.
What are you looking for?
What am I looking for?
What do you need to pursue your business and make it grow?
To make it grow, I've already started. I need clients. I need to get the word out. I need to have people ultimately be willing to step out from the traditional world that they're in. I cannot take insurance from a business standpoint. There's a code for neurofeedback, but if I did that, I would get pennies on the dollar and I wouldn't have a business. So most of us, first question, does insurance take it? The fact is, even if the expenses that a lot of the folks have, if they have a child on 2 or 3 meds for one of these conditions, even with insurance, between co-pays, deductibles, premiums obviously in this crazy system, plus some other adjunct things, over a 5-year period, they're paying what they would pay for our program right away. And under that scenario, they don't really have a way to have that condition resolved potentially. They're just putting that Band-Aid on it. So to grow, I need clients. Yeah.
Is the software custom or is it something that you buy off the shelf? And have you used something like the Emotive Epoch headset to do this?
No, this system was created by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Richard Suter. He's one of the pioneers of neurofeedback. BrainCore is the organization that I work with. Legally, it's not a franchise, but it kind of works that way, where I buy in and have a membership in a territory and the system itself. So our system is exclusive to Dr. Suter and the BrainCore organization. There are more and more things coming out about the brain, some take-home things, and I'm reserving comment on all that other stuff because I'm entrenched with this system and how it works and the best way to help people. I think it can be ultimately a little, we'll see how that other stuff shakes out.
So what's your background then? So you're not like a neurosurgeon or
I'm not a doctor, I'm not a neurologist, I'm certainly not a brain surgeon. I'm a layperson.
Okay.
I'm an entrepreneur. I have another business that allows me to do this, funds it. I'm ultimately passionate about helping people. I've been trained through the BrainCore organization actually twice, certified twice to be able to do this. Education is ongoing. It's the brain. So Dr. Suter himself would be the first person to say he doesn't know everything about the brain. So it's just an ongoing evolution. But his system he's a genius, essentially. And if I did nothing but follow his system, we'd be fine. But I kind of dig a little bit deeper than that. Yes, sir.
What got you into this?
My chiropractor, when I lived in Atlanta before I moved here, he added this to his practice. And I had a little bit of a different background with working with some folks that had this get my attention instead of just ignore it and move on. So as I started to research it, the more research I did, I kept coming back to the same thing. This is helping a high percentage of people. I mean, one success story here and there is great. I mean, one life change is great. But the science shows that this helps a lot of people. And I can't guarantee that someone's going to walk in and walk out, the new person. But the success rate is very, very significant. So the more research, and I looked into this on and off for a 2-year period. I went down to Hilton Head where Dr. Guy is well before I even was ready to start this. And I kept coming back to that same thing. And now that I've been up and running for 14 months, we have our own success stories. And it makes the hassles and ready to beat my head against the wall, as any entrepreneur occasionally wants to do, makes it worthwhile.
Do you have an office, or is this in-home? You visit? You bring?
No. I have an office. It's off of Independence, Caddy Quarter to Mount Trashmore. So, yes.
How many people have done this, and what's the biggest pain point, I guess, in convincing someone to get over the hump and this is actually going to do something? How do you prove that point?
Well, there's 50 years of research that shows the efficacy of this.
It's like when you sit down and talk to somebody.
Yeah. Well, when I talk to somebody, I educate. I don't look at it as sales. I mean, everything is sales ultimately, but I look at it as education. Most people don't know what this is, so I start from square one. Talk a little bit about the history and some of that research. But again, research at the end of the day is research. We have our own stories. I could put a person in front of them. If I'm talking to a parent, I can put another parent in front of them and say,
So
"This
you
is
just
what happened."
put the headset on and let them and just let them go experience what it's doing to get that
No,
feedback?
I wouldn't. No, that wouldn't be a good thing to do. Essentially, I explain the process. I can show them how the process works, where we do the map, with the cap and all that, and then the game plan of the actual neurofeedback and how that program would be. But I'm not going to hook somebody up if I don't know what's going on.
Right. Okay. So there's different programs then for each of the different.
It's customized because everybody's different. Everybody's brainwave is different. Somebody could come to me and say, "I have ADHD." Well, great. I take that with a grain of salt. I need to know that, but I want to see what are your symptoms? Why are you here specifically? Not because you have ADHD, but because of A, B, or C, actual symptoms. And then I see their maps, and their maps may or may not correspond to that. So I use that combination to determine the best plan to give them an opportunity, the greatest opportunity to succeed. Because none of this is black and white.
Are some of the programs interactive?
Different types of neurofeedback programs you're referring to?
Yeah, like the treatment. So with the epoch, have you heard of the emotive epoch headset? So that's I mean, it's the same technology, primarily into gaming. So people will like put this on and you can actually control the computer with your mind. Where I should say some people can control it with their mind. I very easily can control it with my mind. It's a lot of fun. There's this type of thing where a long time ago, I think I told my dad that we'd be able to control things with our minds. He told me I was crazy, and if anybody ever discovered me, to don't tell them that he's my father. But
yeah.
when I got to bring the emotive to him and show it to him, so I took it and I showed it to the whole family, which was really exciting for me because I was like, look, you can move this stuff with your mind, and then nobody in my family could like really control it. It would do like either the opposite of what they wanted it to do, or just like go erratic and stuff like that. So I guess I was just wondering, like, if the treatments, do they involve that, or is it almost like an involuntary response where the brain just sort of modulates?
I would call it more involuntary.
Like what you said about Jersey Shore or whatever.
Yeah, it's not task based. I mean, I think that's what that sounds like to me. It's involuntary where I'll have people say, well, what do I need to think about while I'm watching whatever I want to watch? And sometimes it's easier to have kids do it than adults because kids just want to watch, they don't care.
Right.
Adults, we tend to overthink things. So what do I need to think? You don't need to think about anything, just watch. Because the brain's going to do the rest. So
you said you're watching something, you're trying to watch it, and it makes the screen darker.
Mm-hmm.
So then your brain has to come back and lighten it. But the machine is looking for a certain brainwave pattern in order to bring the light back.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
Yeah, our system syncs up to the clients, and we have we program in what we're training, the areas of the brain we're training. And when those brain waves are being trained the way we have it programmed, it's like watching TV at home.
Right.
But when they don't, which happens all the time, that's when the feedback occurs.
It's a conditioning process.
Yeah.
And that's it.
All right, great job, Steve.
Thank you.